What's going on, guys? Sean here, coming at y'all with a quick little video. A little bit of drama today that I wasn't expecting, a little bit of an inside look on Nick Sirianni, what his role actually is with this team. There's always been a lot of questions about what does Nick do outside of motivating. We got an article here by John McMullen, posted by Ed Kratz on X earlier today. We're going to read through it. I skimmed a little bit earlier, but I wanted the reaction to be kind of genuine for the video. So we're going to go over that today. A lot of stuff about Jeff Stoutland, Nick Sirianni, could have some implications on why Jeff Stoutland actually stepped down, and give us some answers that we've kind of all been looking for. But first, if you're new here, please like, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content that we're posting. I appreciate all your support. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. With that being said, let's get right into the video. So again here, this is John McMullen, posted a couple days ago, why Nick Sirianni's hands-on overhaul with the Eagles last year is risky. Again, wrote by John McMullen, posted earlier today by Ed Kratz. It reads here, for those who question what Nick Sirianni actually does as an NFL head coach, the disappointing 2025 Eagles season is probably the best evidence to support the idea that he is simply along for the ride as the lottery winner next to the impressive roster assembled by GM Howie Roseman. In discussions with multiple team and league sources, Sirianni felt compelled to step in more than ever last season when things began to unravel for the Eagles in the late follow-up to the Super Bowl winning season. Stoutland announced he was leaving the organization on February 4th after the team attempted to retain him in a reduced role as offensive line coach, minus the run game coordinator duties he had held since the Eagles created the position in 2018 pre-Sirianni. The organization still greatly valued Stoutland, particularly his player development skills and his elite teaching of technique and fundamentals. However, the decision had already been made to shift towards a Shanahan-McVay style offense built around wide zone stretch running scheme, something Stoutland didn't want to do this late into his career. Sirianni and then offensive coordinator Kevin Polito had actually pulled the trigger on those changes last season when injuries to the offensive line left Saquon vulnerable to negative plays with limited creative freedom to combat the issues, especially when aligned offset in the shotgun. With the way the NFL is now, without getting too schematic, you see a lot of teams where they're reading pure progressions, they're handling all the junk that's being thrown at you by the defense in the passing game. Sirianni said this spring. Well, this version of the run game is kind of in that mix as well. It's the run game version of it, where there's a lot of run game junk being thrown at you, and this handles all of it. That junk, often unscouted looks from opposing defenses, snowballed into significant first down problems in 2025. Those issues cascaded into difficult second and third and long situations for a limited passing game, producing an offense that was neither aesthetically pleasing nor efficient. A deadly combination for Polito, who was essentially scapegoated. The inefficiency of the Eagles offense is debated inside of the league, with some defaulting to the simplicity of the passing game, of the passing offense being the main handicap, despite obvious similarities during the team's Super Bowl season pointing towards execution. Sirianni first addressed the end of the relationship with Stoutland publicly before the scouting combine. The difference was that in every phase I went in and did different things because, again, we were struggling offensively, the head coach said. We were struggling, so I was like, what do I need to be able to do as the head coach to go in and help where we're struggling here? That was in every phase. So before we dig into this too much more, basically what we're seeing here in the beginning is Jeff Stoutland had been doing the same thing since 2018. Teams have figured it out, obviously, with years under their belt, tape. They see exactly what Stoutland's wanting to do, and you can't really blame Nick Sirianni here for wanting to go in and change things. As for Kevin Polito, I don't think he was absolutely cut out for the job. I think he did a lot of things that worked in the past, and again, it's all on tape. So once you see a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the Eagles doing the same thing, it was very easy for defenses to kind of key in and figure out what we wanted to do. The real problem was the play calling. If you're running every first down or throwing a short behind the sticks pass on every first down, teams are going to key in on that. They're going to get ready for that. There was no surprises in this offense. There was no deep shot on first down. There was no intermediate routes. There was no over the middle stuff. There was no read and react by the tight end and by the outside receivers and stuff like that. There's no slot guy that we could use as a zone beater. It was just a lot of vertical routes, a lot of deep threats, boom or bust, and we didn't use them at the right time. You only called those plays in second and third and long. long. And obviously, the results are going to be what they are. The teams know what's coming. There's no surprises there. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I asked for a draw play on 2nd and long. Okay, they think you're obviously going to throw it. No, they just run an inside zone. There's no fake to it. There's no nothing. Screen plays, we weren't using those efficiently. Imagine how much better our defense is if they don't have to be on the field as much as they do. If we could have just ran the ball a little bit, it would have done so much for our defense to make them even better than they were. So I kind of don't blame Nick Sirianni here, although I do see why Jeff Stoutland was mad. He's won a Super Bowl, been to 2 or 3 with that system, doing the same things that he's been doing. He was kind of the leftover from the Doug Peterson era, continuing to do things that worked then and bringing those into a new style of offense. He also bridged the gap between Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts, allowing the team to kind of flow a little bit smoother than they would have otherwise. Again, I don't really think Jeff Stoutland deserved the shit that he got. Although you are being demoted for a reason, we got to do new things. He kind of did the you can't teach an old dog new tricks thing, and it's become a young man's league. Coaches in the NFL are younger than ever. They want guys who can be with the team forever. They want guys who are going to grow, learn, build all this experience and turn themselves into something more. Look at Sean McVay. Look at all these young coaches that are being hired all over the league. It's not surprising that the Eagles are going to follow that trend, but it is a shame to see Jeff Stoutland essentially scapegoated the same way Kevin Polito was. Kevin Polito was a great quarterbacks coach. He just wasn't a great offensive play caller. And, he wasn't bringing anything new to the table. There was nothing that really made him stand out. And that's why he got fired. So calling him a scapegoat, I could see how people would say that. But I think Jeff Stoutland was a scapegoat. I think Kevin Polito was fired because he just didn't fit into the organization in that role. And he obviously didn't want to move backwards to quarterback coach where he was before. So of course he was going to get fired. I mean, everybody was going to move on. But so far this is interesting. A lot of stuff we already knew, but the Stoutland Sirianni stuff is pretty interesting. Sirianni cited 3rd down, the red zone, which was actually successful in 2025, short yardage plays, play action, the drop back game, and the run game. He felt the need to assist the entire offensive staff, another slip that things were not clicking in the offseason along with Polito and Stoutland. The Eagles also parted ways with the quarterback coach Scott Lofter and tight ends coach Jason Michael. Sirianni has long designed his coaching staff to solve problems collaboratively. Stoutland, however, operated somewhat independently, essentially in a silo, thanks to his stature and reputation, not to mention his historic year delivered in 2024. More than one source described Stoutland as the best assistant coach in NFL history, regardless of the franchise. Or on the organizational flowchart, though, Stoutland still reported to his head coach. So obviously, Stoutland is very, very highly coveted around the league. A lot of people respect him, which you absolutely should. But I think it comes down to some of the Polito things here. If Stoutland isn't willing to take the next step and go into an offensive coordinator role or to really take more heat for what he's doing, then he kind of has to stay as the offensive line coach. I do think he should have stayed in the run game in some aspects. Nobody knows these offensive linemen like he does. I think that's going to be a big thing this year that a lot of people aren't talking about is you have a new guy coming in and he doesn't really know these players the way Stoutland does. So it is a good thing Stoutland's still around, but it makes you wonder how much is Stoutland going to be involved and how much is he going to care considering all this drama that happened last year. Whether Sirianni made the right call on the running game can be debated, but his authority to implement change was not in question. Not to get too much into exactly what it is, but there were changes to what we did, Sirianni acknowledged. But Stout did a lot of the stuff where he brought the ideas of what he was thinking and then he'd be like, hey, I want to run this particular run on our terms. It's always been collaborative in everything that we've done here. In the end, Sirianni has intimated on multiple occasions that the ground game and passing game were not being married up properly. I guess it was more collaborative as an entire group in the run game as opposed to run pod and pass pod, if that makes sense, Sirianni said of the changes he implemented. We felt that meshed up with our play action a little bit better. I anticipate us doing that again, meeting as a group together as a run and a pass game. Okay, so don't mind me reading at a 3rd grade level here. Basically, digging into it a little bit more, Sirianni wanted to bring everything together. So that's what a lot of this looks like. And I don't really have a problem with that either. Again, I kind of find it weird that Stoutland has a problem with it. He's been pretty collaborative through his entire career. It makes you wonder if he felt like he was being backed into a corner, if maybe there was more going on than what we're actually getting here. But from Sirianni's point of view, I don't see how he did anything wrong here. He wants his whole offense working together. You don't want want your run game being built in this room over here, and then a coach coming and going, here's what we're going to do, and then throwing you 3 or 4 or 5 runs. You know, it just doesn't work like that. Then you have a guy calling plays, and then you have a pass game coordinator and a run game coordinator, and you just have too many cooks in the kitchen telling people what to do. In reality, you've got to KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. It's not that hard. You should have a head coach who's laying out everything that needs to be done throughout the year, an offensive coordinator who's building the offense with his assistants. Everything runs through the offensive coordinator. That offensive coordinator is also going to handle play calling duties on Sunday. Your defensive coordinator, perfect. Vic Fangio does all the rest on defense. Head coach fills in where he's needed, continues motivating, uplifting the team, and taking heat from everyone. I think that throughout the year, we talk a lot about Nick Sirianni taking heat for his players, but as soon as we hit the offseason, it's like, yeah, Nick's got to go, and Nick this, and Nick that, and people are still dragging him through the mud, talking about how they're wasting the golden years of the Eagles. Go back and watch all the games. You know, there's always been something else. You can't just blame it on Nick. Yes, Nick is the head coach, so it's going to fall on him at some point, but he's never collapsed the way people talk about him collapsing. He never had a Doug Peterson 3-14 season where you didn't just collapse, but you benched your quarterback and you benched wide receivers and defensive players. You know, we've made it to the playoffs, collapsed in the playoffs, but it's also against really good teams. Go back and watch the games. Jalen's had games where he played his ass off, but he might have missed a throw, or maybe a wide receiver dropped something, or maybe the offensive line wasn't blocking like they should due to injuries. Maybe the defense didn't play up to standards. But if you go back and you watch over the years, it's never just been one thing. People call it a collapse because they don't really know what to point at. Problem is, there's a lot of places to point, and I could see why that would bring you back to the head coach. But for what he's doing right now, he's trying to bring this offense together. He understands this could be a boom or bust year for him. If he doesn't do with this team what's expected of him, they could go in another direction and they could look for someone else. So unfortunately, I recorded about 5 more minutes of ranting, reading through this article, and then everything shut down on me. Cannot remember exactly what I said, cannot find it because everything is corrupt after that first half of everything there that I recorded. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to summarize everything that's left. So long story short, Jeff Stoutland is not currently with the team. He is under contract this year. He cannot coach with anybody else. I can't find anything saying that he's been in the Eagles facility. So as far as I know, he's not even around right now, which means the drama behind closed doors is much, much worse than we thought. Nick Sirianni is adding more people rather than taking people away. It says later in this article that he's actually interested in building a bigger collaborative to bring the team together and to fix the problems that they had last year. A couple good things about that was he's putting everybody in one room. The offense is all going to work out of one room now rather than run game over here, O-line, tight ends bouncing back and forth, you know, just creating too much work for too many guys. Let's do it all together. And on that front, I love that. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we want to see from Nick Sirianni. That's exactly what we want to hear because you want to simplify things. But the bad thing is he's bringing more people in to have a voice. You took that voice away from Jeff Stoutland, and in the same breath you told him, but we're going to bring in more people. We're going to make it more collaborative. You can understand why it would piss him off and why he would feel the way he is. A lot of the way it looks is Stoutland's probably just going to retire. We're probably not going to see much more of him. I really hope at OTAs and everything that we get to see a little bit more of him. I hope he's around. I hope that we can mend things and that this isn't the way things end with Jeff Stoutland because it would really, really be a bummer. I want to see him continue with this team. I'd love to see him get another ring. I think the offensive line, the run game has a lot of potential this year. And with his input, we could really maximize that potential rather than just trying to figure it out with new guys who don't really know what people's strengths and weaknesses are the way Stoutland does. I mean, it's not just the starting 5, it's the guys underneath that he's been working with for years and years and years. Brett Toth has been on this team and played every position on this O-line, has had meaningful snaps over the past couple years. We brought in Matt Pryor at one point. Stoutland had previous experience with him. Dennis Kelly for a training camp. Again, all Stoutland guys, all guys that worked with Stoutland. And now you're not going to get that same respect around the league that you had before. And it's going to be harder to find those replacements, those backups that want to come in, that are willing to do the little things because they know it'll pay off for them in the long run. So this whole thing is a big mess. Make sure you guys check out the article. I love y'all so much. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe. Be sure to check out the channel. I'm really sorry about the video today. I had a lot of good stuff in there and I'm not a two-take guy. I do a lot of this stuff from the heart. I don't read from a script. So when it's gone, it's gone. And that's an unfortunate side effect of the way I do things. But I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for sticking around. Be sure to check out the other videos. I'll catch you guys in the next one.